Right, ever since we made the video about what I do for a living, one of the most common comments or messages that I receive on Facebook or comments that we get on YouTube is, what programming language should I learn? Or what programming language would you recommend? What's the best programming language for a beginner? Lots of questions about programming. And I've explained in a separate video why I don't think that's necessarily the best idea to just start programming because you've seen someone else do well from it. It's not a quick or easy career to get into, and yeah, I think you're better off finding something that you already know about or that you're already good at. And Sai completely agrees with this, and other people like Dr. M3, I think you've probably seen a few of his videos. He's said the same thing, like find something that you don't necessarily have to love it, because that's asking a bit much really, isn't it? Like, it's quite unlikely that you're going to find a job that you absolutely love. Like, I don't love programming. I'm interested in it, and I guess I used to enjoy it more. Once something becomes your job, obviously, you don't enjoy it quite as much because then you kind of have to do it rather than just doing it for fun. But I don't absolutely love programming, but I'm interested in it enough to make me want to keep doing it. And yeah, of course, it makes a decent amount of money, so that's a good incentive. But I'm still interested in it anyway. But basically what I'm trying to get at is if you find something that you're already good at or already interested in, already slightly knowledgeable, you don't have to be an expert, but already slightly knowledgeable about, you'll have a much easier time getting into it and trying to find like a way to make money from it, a way to make a business out of it. Whereas if you're just thinking, right, this guy does programming, I'm going to do programming because he's got a nice car, so I want a nice car, so I've got to do programming. That's not really going to work in most cases. Like, a lot of people I've met have done the exact same thing. They've asked me what I do for a living. They've gone, oh, right, I'm going to start programming. And sometimes I've helped them out. I've kind of learned now not to bother, because you help people out, you give them tips and explain things to do with programming, and within a few weeks they've realised how difficult it is and how much time it's going to take to learn, and they've given up. So it happens a lot, and I'm sure it'll keep happening. And I did explain all this in a separate video, but either a lot of people haven't seen it, or people just don't want to take that advice. They want to still try programming. That's fine. I'm sure a lot of people are genuinely interested in programming anyway, so fine, I'm not going to try and discourage people. I'm just saying, if the only reason, like the sole reason that you're doing it is to try and get rich or whatever, then it's probably not going to work out. That's just my opinion, but obviously a lot of people still want to know about programming, and specifically what I do. So I figured, rather than keep answering these questions of what's the best programming language to learn, what exactly do you do, blah blah blah, so I figured we'd make a video on it and answer all these questions in the video. Yeah, that's basically what it's going to be. So it's not going to be the most interesting or thrilling video ever. There's no fast cars, there's no anything exciting, but for people who keep asking about programming stuff, here you go. This is programming stuff. Okay, I did film all this once already, but then the camera had a bit of a shitter and I've lost all the footage. So I'm filming this for the second time, so I'm sorry if I don't seem too enthusiastic through some of this, but this is the second time I've said all this. I'm just going to answer the one main question that we get asked a lot, which is, which programming language should I learn? I'm going to answer that first, and then we'll cut to a video which I've already filmed of me writing a quick program on the PC. That particular program is written in VisualBasic.net, and that is the programming language that I use. It's the one that I started to learn years ago, and I've never had a reason to move away from it. So that's what I use. It's sometimes referred to as VB.net rather than VisualBasic.net, but it's the same thing. A lot of people use C#.net, which is very similar to VB.net. It looks different, it's kind of a different syntax, different way of writing things, but it compiles down to the same code. It's basically the same thing. So to answer the question of which programming language should you learn, if you want to get into programming, there is no answer, I'm afraid. There is no this is the best language, this is what you should learn. It depends entirely on the kind of programs that you want to make. So if you want to make Android apps for your phone, you might learn Java. If you wanted to make desktop apps for a PC, you might use VB.net or C#.net or C++ or Java again. If you wanted to make web applications, like websites, you would use PHP or ASP.NET. So the kind of program that you're going to write determines which languages you can and can't use. Going from there, so you've decided on a language, so let's say VB.net in this case, because that's what I used. The next thing I would say is pick up a beginner's book. I know it sounds obvious, but that will cover all of the basics, like all the fundamental things in a very good way. Like look at reviews, obviously, because some books are better than others, but or use online tutorials. There are plenty of free online tutorials, but personally I find a book is better. It's kind of structured better and easier to just follow. It's designed to be followed along from one step to another. Online tutorials can sometimes be a bit hit and miss, but again, maybe find a good one that's got good reviews. So go through all the basics, learn the fundamentals, and most importantly, learn the terminology. So learn what an overloaded operator is, learn what a function is, learn what a return value is or an argument. All these things, you need to know what they mean. And some of those are specific to certain languages, but yeah. Because otherwise you're not going to be able to learn any more. If you don't understand what a function is, or what a method is, or what a read-only property is, when someone tells you on a forum to use one of those, you're not going to know what it means. So you're kind of stuck until you start understanding the terminology. And that was when I noticed like a big leap in like what I could do or what I could learn, was when I started to understand, when somebody says that I need to use a shared method, what does that mean? Like I just kind of thought, I don't need to know about that, I'll ignore that bit. But you do need to understand. So that's the main thing, is understand all the terminology, understand what it actually means. And if you don't know, then ask. If you've read it in the book, in the beginner's book or whatever, and you can't really get the hang of it, then ask on a forum. For every major language, there's a very active forum, at least one, normally several, for it. So ask on there. So once I'd finished doing that, once I finished going through the beginner's book for VB.net, the next thing I did, which I guess is kind of an unorthodox way of learning a programming language, but it helped me a lot. And it took a long time, so this is not the best way to learn a programming language, but I was just doing it in my spare time. So it wasn't important to me to learn it really quickly. What I did was I would go on forums, vbforums.com in this case, because that was a Visual Basic forum, clue was in the name. And I would look at other people's questions rather than just asking my own. Like obviously, if there was a specific question that I wanted to know, then I would ask myself. But just to get a general kind of better understanding of things and to learn about areas of the language that I wouldn't think to ask about, what I did was look at other people's questions, try and answer those, because that would then force me to learn about things that I wouldn't have thought to learn about. So if somebody's asking about how do I read an XML file and parse it properly, I would think, I've never tried to do that. I'll do some Googling, and then maybe I'll figure something out, and I'll put forward my solution on the forum. And then normally what would happen is somebody more experienced would come along and say, no, you shouldn't do it that way, you should do it this way. And then you're learning. Like at first it seems like, why are they putting me down, tell me I haven't got it wrong. But once you get over that kind of immature, no, I know best attitude, then you learn from that. Like they'll tell you why your solution wasn't a good one. And then you can see what the best way to do it was and why you shouldn't have done it the way that you suggested. Even if you haven't got an answer, just look through other people's questions and see what the more experienced experts on these forums are suggesting. And if you don't understand why they're suggesting that as the solution, then ask why have you said to do it this way instead of this way, or why have you said to do it this way at all. And that's kind of how I learned. Like for a good few months, maybe even years, I just helped out on forums and learned through other people really. And then just sort of gradually built up knowledge and started to write my own stuff and learn from that as well. So that's pretty much it. I know that sounds simple, but like I said, it took a long time. And don't expect to start to understand all the concepts and things overnight, because it does take a long time for things to sink in and to sort of piece things together, like see how things fit together. But as for a language, you have to pick it based on what you want your software to run on, Windows or Android or whatever. And then as for learning it, beginner's book, online tutorials, and then forums. That would be my advice. So now I'm just going to show you this clip that I recorded earlier of me writing a program. I say a program, it's only like a very simple demo, just showing how to do one specific thing. But I don't know, I just figured it might be interesting for some people to just see me actually writing some code rather than just talking about like classes and namespaces and things. It's easier to actually see it being written. So yeah, enjoy. I'm just going to show you very briefly what you need to get started with writing Visual Basic.NET programs, and then I'm going to just demonstrate me writing something really basic that is kind of along the lines of something one of my programs might do. So to start with, this program that we're in here is Visual Studio. It's a Microsoft product. There is a free version of it, which you can download from visualstudio.com. Personally, I would recommend the 2010 version, so Visual Basic 2010 Express is what I would go for. This is Visual Studio 2010. But yeah, there is a newer version, 2013, but personally I really don't like it. It's pig ugly, it's not particularly intuitive or easy to use, and I just really don't like it. But maybe that's just me being a stick in the mud. So feel free to download either 2013 or 2010. Like I said, I'm using 2010, but I'm using Visual Studio, the full version, so it will look slightly different. But for the most part, once you start it up, you'll see something like this. We're going to create a WPF application, which is the kind of recommended framework for desktop programs. And then this will just give us a blank template to write the program. So if we just run this now, you just get a blank window. Yeah, nothing on it. The way WPF works is that you've got this code here, which is called XAML, or XAML, which defines the user interface. So it defines all the things you can see. So if we wanted a button, we would create a button like that, and that fills up the entire thing, but oops. I can never type, honestly, I can never type when I'm filming things. Normally I would type this stuff all day, but yeah. So basically, yeah, there's a button that's called test. Like if we wanted a list of buttons in a row, we could create a stack panel, stick them all in there. So we'll just copy and paste a load of them, and just call it something else. So then we get like a panel of them, like a list, sorry. Just stick that in the middle. So yeah, so this is all just for defining where things are in relation to other things. If we wanted to make it so that this one's a bit further, have a gap between that one, do it like that. If you want. But yeah, you get the idea. And again, I'm not going to explain all this. There are plenty of tutorials and plenty of places to ask for general programming help. But let's just get rid of these two. So when we double click on one, it takes us to the event handler for the click event, which is this thing here. So if we wanted to just show a window that says hello, then we would do it like this. And this is the title that goes here. Title goes here. Now if we run it, when we click the test button, we get a thing that says hello with title goes here in the title. So you get the idea. And again, I know I'm whizzing through this, but I don't want this to become a general programming tutorial because that would take hours, if not weeks. So, but yeah, so let's just go through something that I might do typically in a program. So let's say that we want to query Active Directory. And Active Directory is like a central database that IT people use to store user accounts, computer accounts, and all sorts of things. Again, I'm not going to go into that. That's kind of beyond the scope of this, but just accept that that's where your user account that you log on with onto a computer at work, that's where your user account lives. So let's say that the program needs to show a list of all user accounts in the domain, in the Active Directory database, essentially. So let's say we want a list box. Let's just call this results box. I'm just giving everything rubbish names, but you get the idea. Below there, let's just make it. Again, can't type because I'm filming. Oops. Right, so we've got a box here that's going to contain a list of items. When we click the test button, we want to populate this box with a list of all the users that are in Active Directory, along with their username and their display name or something like that. I don't know. So, first of all, we need to add a reference to the Active Directory querying library, which is this system.directory services. and then we're just going to import it up here, just so we don't have to keep typing that each time. So again, I'm going to just rush through this and just briefly explain things, because the whole point of this is to just give you a rough idea of what I do. It's not supposed to explain exactly how all this works. If you're interested in that, you can look up all these classes and things that I'm using on MSDN, which is Microsoft's Developer Network, msdn.com. So yeah, right, so if we wanted to find all user accounts, let's create a root object. There's a directory entry, and we're going to bind to my test server, which is this, I think. Yeah, that'll do. And we need password, or username and password, sorry. Right, so you can see as well, it tells us what each argument is. So if I click, the comma separates each argument for this, I was going to say function, it's not technically a function, it's a constructor, but whatever. So you see here, username, that's how I know to put the username in there, and then if I click on to the next comma, it's password, and it tells you what the password is for and everything, blah, blah, blah. So let's just create a searcher. This is going to be a directory searcher. Oops. And use that as our root. So filter to object class of user. Now, technically, that won't only give us users, that will give us computer accounts as well. But again, I'm not going to go that much into this. So let's just do using results as search result gotcha. Fine. So basically, right, what we've done is create an object, this directory searcher class, that is going to use this directory entry as its root of where it's going to search. And so I've set it to my test domain. And it's going to use a filter that only finds users. So this line here, this find all, as you can see when you hover over it, executes the search and returns a collection of the entries that are found. So now we're going to loop through all of the results. So for each result, in results, and just, yeah, because we wanted to add them to a list, don't we? So let's create a list. Results list, we'll call it. Just a list of string. So basically here we're looping through all of the results, and then for each one, so for each result in the results list, we're going to do everything that's inside this for each, and basically everything that's between for each and next. All this stuff is going to get executed over and over again for each result, so for each user account in the domain. So we want to check to see if it has a username, and if it does, then we'll add it, and if it doesn't, we won't. So let's just say, well, actually no, I know this is sloppy programming, but every user account will have a SAM account name, so we're just going to grab the SAM account name and add it. So we're going to just say, just text. These are really rubbish variable names, sorry, but right. So basically, sorry, I've got to tell it that this is a string because it doesn't know what type of object it is. Right. Yeah, if we didn't do that, it'll tell us. Like this blue squiggly line means something's wrong. If you hover over the red bit, it'll say what do you want to do. So in that case, it's smart enough to figure out what we needed to do anyway, so it's okay. Yeah, so we're going to just add the, let's get the description, let's get the display name and the description as well. So we're going to say if result contains display name, and then text. This and equals thing just means add to the existing value. So we're going to add to the end of this space. We'll just put that properties display name. And we're going to have to do the same thing again. Convert it to a string. Again, I'm not going to explain what the 0 is for. Again, it's too much to go into all these little things. So this is going to add that to the text. We should really be using a string build here rather than a string, but again, it's just a quick demo. And then we're going to do the same thing again for the description, I guess. Yeah, we'll do the description. So that'll add description to the end as well. Yeah, that'll do. And so then when we get to the end of all this, and we've cleaned up all the resources, Then we can set our list box, which we called, what did we call it? Results box. So we're going to set results box, item source. Come on, give me a source. There we go. Set that to our list of results. Right. So, so we haven't actually added it. That could have been embarrassing. Add text. Right. Let's just run this, make sure it works, and then I'll kind of go through and explain a little bit. Yeah, so that works. So basically we've got a list of all user accounts in the domain. So administrator, guest, guy called C. Robinson. You see there's some fun ones that I've added just for this demo. But yeah, so that's the SAM account name first, then the display name, and then the description. Because we've got SAM account name here that we're setting in the text property first. Then we're going through and setting the display name, and then we're setting the description. So the best way I can show you exactly how this is working is to stick a breakpoint on here. And a breakpoint means that when the program gets to that part of the code, so if we run it again, it will stop. So we click test, and you see the program's actually stopped now. The program's frozen. If we press F8, it will go through line by line. So now we can see what's happening. So it's gone down to this next line. We can see the values of different things. I'm not going to go into that as well. So now it's going to go through. At the moment, the text variable is nothing. Okay, so we've got no data in that text string at the moment. If we go to the next line, now that it's executed this bit where it's setting the text variable, we see it's now been set to administrator because in this loop we're currently on the administrator account. When we get to this line down here, it'll jump back up to the top and start for the next user account. So here we're checking to see if it has a display name. It does, so we enter this bit, and then we're going to add the display name. So again, at the moment, text is just administrator, but by the time we run that bit, then we've got, again, this time the display name is the same as the username, so it's not very obvious what's going on there. But and then same for the description. Does it have a description? Yes. So now we've got this description here, which is just something that the description got set to a while ago when I was testing something. So then we add to our results list, which is up here. At the moment, it's got no items in it. But now we're going to add this text to it. So if we go to the next line, so now our results list has got one item in it, which is the text that we just had. And now it'll jump back up to the top because we're in this loop, we're in this for each loop. So it's jumped back up to the top, and now we're going to go through the whole process again for the next person, which is guest in this case. And then it goes through and adds the different text to the guest thing, then adds that text to the results list. So now we've got two items in it. And so it keeps going until it's finished. Then we get to this line, and if I just go to run to cursor, it'll run everything else, and then it'll stop again when it gets to here, which is what it's done. And now our results list has 22 items in it, which are all the user accounts. And so we're just setting the results list box item source to be this list, so that it displays all of those items. So now when we finish, we get the list. So yeah, so that's very basic. And again, I'm sorry I didn't explain things too well, but I hope you can appreciate it would take hours to explain all of these things. But yeah, I can't really explain it too well in a short sort of 10-minute video. But I thought hopefully some people will appreciate just seeing the code and seeing me write something. And just, I don't know. I thought it might be interesting for some people. Maybe it's not. Maybe you're all terribly bored and wish you hadn't clicked this video. I would like to say if there's any questions, then ask, but like I keep saying, I can't, be a personal programming guide. There are tons and tons of tutorials that will do a way better job than I ever can. Hopefully you enjoyed that. We're going to have a much more interesting video coming very soon. It's going to be a kind of Christmas themed video. I'm not going to explain what it is, but you're either going to love it or hate it. I think a lot of people are going to be a bit surprised by how stupid it is. We'll see. It involves the R8 and it's Christmas themed. That's all I'm going to say. But yeah, it's definitely one of the more daft things that we've done. But it's taken a long time, but it should be ready by next week. So we'll release a video of it in a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. So yeah,